Okay, hello everyone out there from far and wide. Thank you so much for joining Project Coyote's Wolf Awareness Week 2025 webinar. I'm Nadia Steinzer. I am the Carnivore Conservation Director for Project Coyote, and I will be hosting this along with my esteemed colleagues from Project Coyote, and really appreciate you spending an hour with us today to talk about wolf recovery and protection and some of the things that are changing. We're going to try and look at some of the positive news since there's so much bad news around wolves and generally, and then we'll also be talking about what hasn't and the work that remains before us. So just to introduce our team today, that's me on the left, Nadia Steinzer, and I am coming to you from the Catskill region of New York. I have a background in policy analysis and research. I've been with Project Coyote about 6 months, and I've worked to strengthen protections for many years for the health and well-being of wild and human communities for different nonprofits. And with me today, we'll also be presenting Mark Surls. He's our Colorado and Northern Rockies coordinator. And Mark raises awareness of the ecological and ethical importance of protecting wild carnivores and advocates for stronger wildlife protections. And he's also an accomplished wildlife photographer and writer with great pictures of coyotes and other animals. And then Chris Shadler, Project Coyote's New Hampshire representative. She's worked as a conservation biologist and has been a sheep farmer, and she also co-founded the New Hampshire Wildlife Coalition. Chris educates the public throughout the Northeast on the eastern coyote and the benefits of coexisting with wild creatures. And they're both going to be talking about what's going on in their respective regions. And then, of course, the most important member of the team are wolves themselves, who are remarkably resilient and inspiring, which is why we're all here today. So quickly, before we get started, Project Coyote this week for Wolf Awareness Week, as we do every year, is doing a For Love of All Things or Float campaign. That's a company that produces t-shirts and other merchandise on behalf of nonprofit organizations and charitable causes. And so you can speak up for wolves with what you wear. Feel free to go to float.org/Project Coyote, and all week we'll have great merchandise there, and a big portion of the purchase goes directly to Project Coyote. So just a pitch for that. So I just want to give a little context to what's changed and what hasn't before Mark and Chris give you deeper presentations. So essentially, over time, we've gone from a war on wolves to what I tend to call as persistent pressure. So looking back, and this of course is a big sweep of time in just a few minutes, but looking back in the 19th and 20th centuries, wild carnivores were killed through deliberate predator eradication campaigns, and that includes wolves, coyotes, and other animals that involve just rampant hunting, trapping, poisoning, and bounties. So those were done by governments and by private individuals. And it was pictures like this on the right that were very prevalent back in the day. Now, and from about the mid-20th century to the present, you still have horrific activities taking place by both governmental agencies and individuals. But what has really changed, and that's the good news, is there has been shifting public opinion that is more supportive of conservation science, conservation generally, the greater awareness of the importance of predators like wolves on the landscape. And there has been greater protection under federal and state laws, thanks to the Endangered Species Act and other policy mechanisms. And then we've also seen, especially since the 90s, with the wolf reintroduction, Yellowstone being the pioneering event, a lot more reintroductions and recovery, wolves returning home on their own and with some help. And so they've, again, proven incredibly resilient. The persecution continues, but there have been all of these other changes in the meantime that have shifted or moved the needle somewhat. So the entrenched attitudes that have always characterized both the war on wolves and the current day persistent pressure are human fear and the desire to dominate wolves, a perceived threat to farmed animals and agriculture, perceived threats to wild game species, and a reliance, too much reliance, we would say, on killing to solve conflicts rather than coexistence. So all of those things still occur, and we're, a lot of the debate today around wolves is still based on those attitudes. So if we learn from history and we look forward, we can see, this map on the right, it doesn't have giant numbers, and thankfully already the Colorado number is outdated. There are more wolves now there today. But this is the numbers as of 2024. And if you think that several decades ago, there were virtually no wolves in the lower 48, except for a couple of populations in the Midwest, the Rockies, and very scant numbers. And they are starting to recover and starting, as I said, to return home through reintroductions and through their own resilience. So this map is not nearly what we would like it to see. We'll still currently occupy an estimated 10% of their historic range in the lower 48, but it's better than it was some decades ago. I'm trying to do a little glass half full today. So wolf recovery and protection work, as we learn from history and we look forward, really requires constant policy vigilance and advocacy. The most important thing we can do now in the current federal administration context is to retain the Endangered Species Act listing. And we also need to push state agencies to take more initiative and do more. And we'll talk about that today as well. And then we also continually need legal challenges. There's constant push to increase wolf hunting and trapping, as we're seeing now in Montana. And there's a legal pushback by Project Coyote and lots of its partner groups. And then there's also legislative efforts to block new reintroductions like we're seeing in Colorado, and we'll hear more about that. So we definitely need to keep up the legal challenges. And then the other two things that we really all can engage in and all can do is public education and engagement to dispel myths about wolves and the big bad wolf, and to promote coexistence and all of the amazing coexistence methods that exist for ranchers and farmers and residents to get along with wolves rather than feeling like they have to kill them when conflicts arise. And overall, and again, we can all do this, is just carry forward the appreciation for wolves' vital ecological role as top predators, and their intelligence, their resilience, and their persistence, so that this map, hopefully in another year or two, will have even bigger numbers. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Mark Surls, to talk about what's been happening in Colorado.
Great. Thank you, Nadia. I'm just going to get my presentation going. Thank you all for joining us today. Again, my name is Mark Surls. I'm the Colorado and Northern Rockies coordinator for Project Coyote. I'm getting used to that title. It's a new one, transitioning from only Colorado to include those Northern Rockies very soon. So I'm going to give some background on the Colorado wolf reintroduction and then talk about the current state of the program with an emphasis on the coexistence methods and strategies that Colorado Parks and Wildlife has implemented. Often we focus on things we want to change and the places where we think state agencies could improve, but today we're going to focus more on the success of the Colorado wolf reintroduction. So as we get started, I did want to clear up some terms, both acronyms, and then a little background on Prop 114. So CPW, Colorado Parks and Wildlife. CDA is the Colorado Department of Agriculture. Prop 114 was the successful 2020 ballot initiative that mandated the reintroduction of wolves to Colorado. And then I'm going to use predation instead of depredation today. Depredation means to plunder or ravage, and that's not what wolves are doing. They kill to eat, not to plunder. So a little background on Prop 114 and how it came to be. So wolves really became non-existent except for a couple moving down from northern states since World War II. And the reason that wolves have been unsuccessful coming back to Colorado on their own is because our neighbor to the north is Wyoming. And there is little hope for a self-sustaining population to be established without the aid of reintroduction because of the policies in Wyoming. And the driving force that keeps wolves from successfully migrating to Colorado from northern states is that 85% of Wyoming is considered the predator animal management area. That means that wolves, coyotes, red foxes can be killed without a permit. And because Wyoming is a special place, even raccoons, porcupines, skunks, and jackrabbits are considered predators in that area. It's not impossible, but highly unlikely for a wolf to successfully navigate the Wyoming landscape and make it to Colorado. So the background on Prop 114, it received yes votes in every county in the state. And soon after the election, Colorado Parks and Wildlife started to develop the wolf management plan. This included many public meetings, the formation of a stakeholder advisory group, and a technical working group. These groups were made up of renowned wolf scientists, federal and state wildlife staff, wolf advocates, ranchers, hunters, and elected officials. And while opponents of the reintroduction say the process was rushed, 2.5 years were actually spent with the aid of these groups to shape the Colorado wolf policy that we have today. So during that time, there were 47 meetings across the state, engaging over 3,400 participants. And at the end of the period, the wolf management plan was complete. The timeline here is that our first pause hit the ground December 2023, and that plan, those were 10 wolves that were reintroduced from Oregon. And then again, in January of this year, 15 were relocated from British Columbia, Canada. This winter will most likely be the last round of reintroductions, with 10 to 20 more wolves arriving in Colorado achieving management goals. And the wolf management plan calls for 30 to 50 wolves to be reintroduced. And this does not include wolves that naturally migrate to Colorado or pups that were born from reintroduced wolves. So I'm going to start with some downer news first in the life and death of wolves in Colorado. And so since paws hit the ground, 10 wolves have died, including one yearling that was born in Colorado from reintroduced parents. Mortality sources of note include 3 wolves who traveled from Colorado to Wyoming, at least 4 gunshot wounds or deaths, whether legal or not, state and federal actions, and injuries sustained from a foothold trap that was set for a coyote. And for those who are familiar with Colorado politics and history, you'll remember that Amendment 14, which is not to be confused with Prop 114, is a constitutional amendment that passed in 1996, and it prohibits body gripping devices except for their use under special permit. And this trap that ultimately killed a wolf was placed under that special permit, but the program is now currently under a moratorium following that incident. So now the good, and I'm probably going to lose your attention here while I play a video of some of this year's wolf pups. 4 packs have formed in Colorado. The Copper Creek pack was formed last year, and then 3 more have been established in 2025. So this is really fascinating here too. And so how does having a family change how far wolves will travel? And this data was collected by CPW and the wolf collars. And you'll see the first animation here shows how female wolf 2312 traveled before denning, which is the yellow line, and then after. And you'll notice how her activity became localized, but as the pups grow, her movements too will. will also grow, but 2312 and her pack's territory should be more predictable now that the pack has been established. And then the next one here is going to compare the pup rearing 2312 to 2302, another female who hasn't started a family yet. And so just like humans, life after kids changes quite a bit. A key piece of the Colorado Wolf Plan has been focus on non-lethal management and collaboration between various stakeholder groups. One of the greatest success stories has been the Born to be Wild license plate, which was created by the Rocky Mountain Wolf Project and has raised over $100 million, or excuse me, $1 million so far. Hopefully we get to the $100 million mark sometime. Colorado Parks and Wildlife can use these funds for non-lethal tools such as flattery and fox lights, and it also is used to help fund the Range Rider program. The license plate does not fund killing wolves or compensation to ranchers, and Colorado relies on appropriated general funds to provide the most generous compensation program in the country. A vital piece of any reintroduction, but even more so because this reintroduction was done through a vote. We'll dive into a few of the other features of the program now. So up to $15,000 can be claimed per confirmed predation event. And this also includes veterinarian bills. A multiplier of 5 or 7 can be used per confirmed wolf predation, depending on whether non-lethals were used or not. Claims for underweight cows have also been made. And while I applaud the agency for generous compensation program, these last two items could be re-examined and tweaked to limit abuse or better utilize taxpayer dollars. Colorado Parks and Wildlife has 9 range riders, and the Department of Agriculture has 2 more available to assist producers. They're the frontline response whenever potential wolf livestock conflict exists, and I have faith that their work will only get better as they gain experience and more packs form, providing officers more localized and predictable wolf behavior. Colorado Parks and Wildlife and partner agencies offer free voluntary site assessments to help livestock owners reduce wolf livestock conflicts. These assessments, available anytime and tailored to individual operations, identify practical tools and techniques for minimizing conflict. Livestock producers receive a detailed report with recommended strategies, equipment guidance, and contacts for support. The program aims to build trust with ranchers, promote real solutions, and inform management decisions if wolf predation becomes chronic. Unfortunately, in the case of chronic predation, this includes the possibility of lethal removal. And I want to say clearly that killing needs to be off the table. Site assessments are divided into 2 categories, proactive and reactive. Proactive site assessments are initiated when a livestock owner expresses concern about potential wolf conflict. Guidance is provided on hazing techniques that don't require permits. Permits may be recommended if wolves are present. Livestock owners also must approve what tools are used and remove attractants such as carcasses within a recommended time frame. And a cooperative loan agreement for materials from CPW, such as flattery or trail cameras, is created based on risk, resource availability, and owner participation. Effectiveness is monitored jointly, with success measured by behavior changes or absence of predation. Reactive site assessments are triggered when a livestock owner reports actual or suspected damage, and CPW then investigates to confirm which carnivore it was, for example, wolf, bear, coyote, lion, etc. Staff then assesses the site and recommends which non-lethal tools and techniques should be used with the permission of the producer, and then timely deployment of those tools like flagery, fencing, range riders depends on owner cooperation and attractant management. And a lack of both owner cooperation and attractant management have led to continued conflicts, though this is the exception and not the rule. Materials are loaned based on urgency and available labor. High effort tools requiring more planning will only be used for a short term, and successes evaluated through reduced or ceased predation and observed changes in wolf behavior. And there are 3 levels of response that CPW escalates during a wolf conflict. Level 1 prepares for potential conflict and determines if escalation is needed. Level 2 aims to reduce conflict through targeted non-lethal deterrence. And level 3 deploys high-effort tools rapidly, intensifies human presence, and both 2 and 3 may include injurious non-lethal hazing permits. This slide here is overwhelming, and I did that intentionally to show what CPW and partner agencies both have as inventory, and then the staff that is involved. And so as of October 2025, CPW and CDA have completed 222 site assessments, with an additional 11 assessments done by the National Resources Conservation Service through their Stewarding the Working Wild Regional Partnership Program. The highest enrollment to date occurred between January and May of this year, followed by a seasonal decline. And engagement has been strong in areas with concentrated wolf activity, and CPW anticipates increased assessments in late fall and early winter of this year, particularly in southern Colorado, where they are planning to do the next round of reintroductions. CPW and CDA, supported by Colorado State University Extension, are hosting local workshops, including current sessions in Gunnison and Montrose, which consistently generate interest and signups for future site assessments. Both CPW and CDA have assembled a wealth of information from experts from around the West for producers to utilize. And then also nonprofit organizations have brought ranchers and coexistence experts from other states to Colorado to share real life examples of how they balance the needs of the agricultural community with the needs of a fully functioning ecosystem that does include apex carnivores. The pieces are in place to make wolf reintroduction in Colorado a success, and it's my hope that we get through this adjustment period with minimal losses to both wolves and livestock, and we can move on to acceptance and appreciation, not just for the wolves, but for this historic voter-approved reintroduction. So remember, we can always advocate for better policies, but we should also take a moment to step back and appreciate the job well done by Colorado state agencies, wolf advocates, and ranchers willing to learn to live with wolves. Thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you so much, Mark. And you could stop sharing your screen, and then Chris can share hers, and we'll move on to the other side of the country, where interesting things are underway with wild canids. And then we will have time for the questions and answers. I'm seeing all these great questions in the chat, so thank you all. Okay, Chris, take it away.
Yeah, I'm trying. It says I'm screen sharing. Do you see anything?
We see your email, unfortunately.
Okay, it's an exciting email. Let's see. I don't know. I don't know how to get it back. I don't.
Kristen, are you available for a little tech assistance?
Yeah. Chris, I can share the slides for you if you'd like.
Okay, good.
Okay. If you want to hit stop share,
Yeah.
I'll go ahead.
Stop sharing your screen, Chris,
Yeah, got it.
and then you can just tell Kristen when to advance the slides.
Okay. Okay, good. So is this full screen?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. If if the chats could stop for a little bit during my talk, that would be great because I don't know, I can't see my whole screen
Okay,
because
just close your chat box just on the right-hand side where you see it, just hit the X and you won't see the chat. And then people can keep adding.
okay. Um, okay. Anyway, I wanted to give people time to read through this. So we've got protection for one canid and none for the other. Okay, let's begin. So, Western coyotes are a small wolf in the order that all of the members of this canis are all regarded as wolves of one sort or another. Western coyotes are anywhere 25 to 35 pounds, but they live among very large Canis lupus who regard them sometimes as competitors and can kill them. Whereas here in the Northeast, our coyotes, next slide, our coyotes range in size. So this is a pretty dramatic slide, but these are in fact two coyotes. And the one on the right is a 45-pound general issue coyote, and the one on the left is a 72-pound coyote. Note that both of them have long, thin muzzles and look very similar in their face, but their body type, one, the largest one, somebody's writing that she can't see it. Is that true for most people?
No, I can see it. You're good.
Okay. So ours range a lot in size, and some of ours are even larger than 60 pounds. Okay, they are undergoing rapid evolution. Next slide. Now, this is an exciting slide. It shows change over just 130 years from the Western coyote to the Eastern coyote. Note in the upper right, the size of the jaw on the Eastern coyote compared to the size of the jaw on the Western. This is remarkable to me when I first saw it. As this animal has evolved rapidly into a larger predator, it is the result of interbreeding with the Eastern wolf. Next slide. From Ontario and Quebec. Kristen, can you click once more on this and see what happens? Okay. So you've got a small wily coyote in the bottom left, interbreeding with an eastern wolf and becoming a large and capable predator here in the Northeast, the eastern coyote. And the arrows on above that indicate that crossing continues. So access to the eastern wolf is facilitated by wildlife corridors. Can you hit the button again, Kristen? Again as well. Okay, here we have the Algonquin to Adirondack or A to A corridor, and there are other routes as well for coyotes traveling from west into Ontario and northeast. They have continued to breed with the eastern wolf in Algonquin, producing eastern wolves which can now carry up to 30% coyote DNA. The eastern wolf has, until recently, been considered a subspecies of the gray wolf, Canis lupus, and was referred to as Canis lupus lycaon. Today, this eastern wolf is recognized as a unique species, Canis lycaon. Next slide, please. Look at that handsome guy. Their homeland, well, I'm not going to talk about that in a second. Note that according to officials in Canada, eastern wolves are differentiated both from boreal wolves and eastern coyotes in a number of ways. So they have a unique signature, a unique genetic signature. Okay, can you go to the next slide? Their homeland is in Algonquin Provincial Park up in Ontario. And in this piece of research from John Benson done in 2015, he indicated where eastern wolves are mostly found, which is Algonquin Park. And then the red are eastern coyotes that are up there, and the blue are gray wolves. And so what he was trying to discover was what the interbreeding, what kind of interbreeding was happening within the park and outside of the park. Today, we know that there is more introgression of eastern coyotes inside the park than ever before. And of course, there's the concern that coyotes will swamp eastern wolves, which could very easily happen. You can see on the western edge of the park, there's a pretty concentrated group of coyotes just waiting for eastern wolves to venture out between January and March, and they can breed. But it's interesting how gray wolves are interbreeding with both coyotes as well as eastern wolves. So, next slide. Now, over the last 30 years or so, the Maine Wolf Coalition and the Wolf Conservation Center in New York has kept track of large canids killed mistakenly by hunters. There is evidence that at least 18 eastern wolves or gray wolves have migrated back into native territory from Algonquin or from other parts of Ontario, or in fact from Quebec as well. They've migrated back into their native territory here in the Northeast and been mistaken for large eastern coyotes and killed. This hunter, like many of them, killed this wolf thinking that it was a large coyote. Next slide. So here we have sort of the meat of the matter. We've got an eastern wolf on the left, an eastern coyote on the right, and you can see how alike these animals look. They are creatures of large ears and long tails and very similar physiques. One is protected, one is not. Hunting is still the greatest threat to this wolf, and you can see why. Next slide, please. Here's another example of the difficulty in telling one wolf from a wolf from a coyote. There's no telling how many wolves have been killed as large coyotes. But who's at fault here? Can you blame the hunter? Unless agencies are informing their hunters about the possibility of wolves, how can the hunter be blamed? Most states still allow year-round hunting of coyotes. And in the Northeast, this quote unquote management practice imperils wolf recovery. Next slide. So here's an obvious example of recent hybridization between wolf, eastern wolf up north, and coyote. This photograph was taken in Canada. It has features of both species evident: a large bushy coyote tail, but a large body, strong muzzle, and legs of a wolf. Hybridization offers many advantages and is a natural ongoing process among canids, birds, trees, and other organisms. The hybrids exhibit greater adaptability in a rapidly changing environment. Genetic variability provides opportunity. Canis is a wandering and adaptable taxon, enabling creatures such as this to have been trapped. Please, next slide. Creatures such as this to have been trapped along a probable wildlife corridor on the eastern flanks of the Adirondacks. Note its bulk, its square muzzle, its slightly shorter, thinner tail, and its ear spacing. Undoubtedly an eastern wolf, but no DNA was able to be retrieved. Next slide. This slide was taken here in New Hampshire, up in Franconia. This animal is very wolf-like looking, except for the tail, which is dramatically coyote. A hybrid. Eastern wolves are hybrids. To protect this animal or just discard it as a hybrid. Next slide. Now, what I'd like you to do, Kristen, is just click on this slide, please. Nope, go back. Maybe I have to do this. Oh, come on. Unfortunately, it's not going to work. Darn it. So that, if you can go back, I'm sorry. Go
Yeah,
back to this.
sorry. I think I can't play the video from my end.
Yeah,
Apologies.
yeah. So I think none of these videos are going to work. So we'll just go with that slide. This is probably an average coyote, nice long tail. If you could see his face, you would say absolute coyote, but it's a rather large one, very gray one, and seen from a distance, who would know? Okay, next slide. This animal, this animal is quite a wolfy looking animal. We don't have DNA on this creature. The tail would tell me that at least there's some coyote. The face, the shorter muzzle, squarer muzzle, and the set of the ears, if you could see its face, you would see, and very long legs, very long, powerful legs. So the quandary is this here in the Northeast. Since eastern coyotes are 30% wolf, and eastern wolves are up to 30% coyote, they're both hybrids, but eastern wolves are protected as a threatened species in Canada, in parts of Canada, not in all of Canada. Here in the northeastern states, these animals have no protection because nobody's checking to see if they are wolves. It's not until somebody mistakenly kills a wolf and turns it into an agency that we can determine whether and check the DNA whether they were wolves or not. The larger question is this. If you can go to the next slide. Oh, here's some pups, and here's a female that looks pretty darn wolfy. Look at her climbing over that fallen timber. Just wonderful. Okay, go ahead. Next slide. Similarity of appearance. You all probably know about this. If two different species look like each other and one is endangered and the other isn't, this clause has to protect the unprotected in order to protect the protected. And so this clause generally has applied to Western situations. It has not, as far as I know, ever been applied here. But because we know from the work that the Maine Wolf Coalition has done over a long period of time that wolves have come into the Northeast. They are trying to come back. They're trying to naturally recover. And in my view, the only way that we're going to have successful wolf recovery in the Northeast is if they come back on their own 4 feet. About 25 or 30 years ago, reintroduction had been mentioned and shot down. And then a law was passed to forbid reintroduction of wolves. So we need to rely on wolf recovery. And the only way we can do that is if the eastern coyote is protected in some way. So I've provided here on the bottom some things that we can do to support wolf recovery. Awareness, as Nadia says, advocate. I I can't even see my own slide because of the chat, and I don't know how to turn the chat off. Oh, it's frustrating. We can advocate for similarity of appearance, require hunters to report take of any canid fur bearers, which we're trying to do right now, and get agencies to alert hunters to the possible presence of wolves. That wouldn't take much effort, and yet it would inform hunters. So with that, I think one more slide and I'm done. Yep, this is my goodbye hybrid.
Thank you so much, Chris. And Mark and I have been answering some of your questions in the chat, but we'll keep going. So here's a question for you, Chris. In different areas of the eastern US, are there different percentages of wolves versus coyotes? And I think this gets to the fact that we're just starting to have some DNA studies done. But there's a lot of photographic evidence, obviously, and trail cams. So what do you have to say about that?
Well, down in the southeastern part of the country where they've reintroduced red wolves, that reintroduction has overall not gone very well. And there are only, I think, 17 or 18 of those wolves remaining, with hundreds, if not maybe thousands, of coyotes prowling around down there. Up here, and there will always be more coyotes than wolves. I have to say that. Coyotes just, they're built that way. And so the in the east up here, we have no idea really how many wolves there are roaming through, and unfortunately, we only find out after one has been killed. So not many wolves now. We're hoping for more later when we become a little bit more aware.
Great, thank you. And there's another question here. I'll answer part of it and then turn it to Mark. The native prey populations available or not to support wolf recovery in Colorado and the Northeast, and I'll take the Northeast. So there are parts of the Northeast, it's very variable, where deer, white-tailed deer, are considered to be a significant problem, and we have a lot of traffic accidents and overbrowse, and there's been big efforts by state agencies, including in the state where I live, New York, to try to increase hunting, issue permits for does and so on, because of the impact on vegetation and other native species. So, you know, there is a discussion among wolf advocates and coyote advocates about the need for larger carnivore species in the Northeast, including the mountain lion. There's discussion about reintroduction of cougar or catamount, all these different names of that species as well. to address the overabundance of deer in some areas. So that would be the primary prey population. There's also moose in some parts of the Northeast. And there are some extremely interesting studies that have emerged from Canada and other parts of the Northeast US as well about the ability of these larger coyotes, admix coyotes, to take down larger animals and to pack up and take down deer in particular, which is really interesting. There's one study from Pennsylvania, for example, it shows the higher percentage of wolf DNA the coyotes had, the more likely they were to be able to prey on deer. So those are the two main species. And maybe, Mark, you have a answer to that question as well?
Yeah, in Colorado, Colorado is home to the world's largest elk herd. So that's going to be their number one prey source. We also have mule deer, and then they also love to supplement with any kind of small rodent or lagomorph. So one really positive thing about wolves here and mountain lions as well with our deer and elk herds is the prevalence of chronic wasting disease. And we know that both wolves and lions can help reduce the abundance of chronic wasting on the landscape. And so they're really an ally for healthy herds, and then also for the hunting community to keep chronic wasting under control. And then I also wanted to pivot over to a question in the chat about why isn't CPW sued for allowing special permits to trap coyotes, proof that trapping kills indiscriminately. Unfortunately, I brought up Amendment 14 in my presentation, and when that passed and the statute was created, they included specific language for agricultural exemptions. So the only way to completely remove these body gripping devices from the landscape would be another constitutional amendment. And so what we can do is encourage our state agency to refine the program and really limit how those permits are issued and what kind of body gripping devices are used. So making sure that they are padded leg hold traps, making sure that they're double swivel, making it where they are, in the end of the day, especially with the coyote, they're most likely going to unfortunately kill a coyote, but if an animal is in there, then they can release that animal without harm being done to them.
Great. And in that regard, before we go to a different question, I will also just emphasize a lot of people have been commenting in the chat, and you're all extremely right. And we couldn't agree with you more about the problem of persecution of coyotes and mixing up here. And I think that, Chris and I will say other member organizations in the Northeast Wolf Recovery Alliance, we have a coalition in the Northeast pushing for wolf recovery. One of the things we really keep saying is that we need to do this for all wild canids, and the wild canid place in the landscape is historic. It is their home, and whatever you decide to call them, they deserve protection and deserve respect, particularly as we were just discussing with the very important ecological role that they play in maintaining a balance among species of all sizes and all levels, not just the big ones I talked about. So, we do have that issue. I think all over the country, we need to push for greater protections of coyotes and to stop unlimited killing and persecution by both government agencies and hunters, which is also why we have campaigns to prevent wildlife killing contests and to reform hunting and trapping rules. And I really think, and I wrote this in the chat, I'll just emphasize again, what's happening in the Northeast is really underscoring that the two species are brethren and can coexist and can become, work with each other, and they both deserve protection.
Can I Can I
Yes,
add
please, Chris, please
something?
add.
I think, yes, they're both brethren. There seems to be a destiny to me that these two will converge. This eastern wolf and the eastern coyote ultimately will form like a super eastern coyote or a more fabulous eastern wolf creature that will someday be able to address the deer situation. Since coyotes have been on the landscape and since hunters have claimed continuously up until the present that coyotes threaten the deer herd, the deer harvest in New Hampshire and Vermont and Maine has never been higher. And so why would that be since coyotes have been on the landscape? Well, I'm glad you asked, because the reason for that is that it's possible that coyotes are beginning to actually have some kind of an impact on deer, especially at the fawn level. And I know that sounds, terrible that I'm happy about that, but that's nature. And so anyway, I think that there's really good reasons why where good things are happening on the landscape, some attribution should be given to the coyote. Um, and I'm seeing that somebody is using the word coy wolf. I don't use that word. I think it indicates that the animal is more wolf than it actually is. It is, in fact, an eastern coyote. That's a good enough name. And it should be a northeastern coyote. Maybe we should just say that, because it's not the same coyote that's found down in New Jersey and Maryland and Delaware and the Carolinas. Those are western coyotes down there.
Yeah, and I would like to piggyback on too. So in Colorado, it's no secret I'm on the fur bear working group with Colorado Parks and Wildlife, and that's a place where I've been advocating for shortened seasons on coyotes and then limits, and not just on coyotes, but on all species that are classified as fur bears, and then also limits on them. And then I also wanted to address a question about a buffer zone around Yellowstone. So in Montana, there is uh, an area, a game management area, wolf management area right outside of the park that allows for less killing, but it's not in fact a buffer zone. And then the same thing in Wyoming, where that 85% of the state is considered the predator zone. Right outside of Yellowstone, there's the trophy game management area, and that they do so it's not a full stop on wolf killing, but it's not the complete Wild West that the other 85% of the state is. So that is something that needs to be addressed because too many wolves are leaving the park and immediately being killed, and they should have those protections because they don't know where those imaginary lines exist.
Yeah. Thanks for that, Mark. And yeah, it's all imaginary lines if you're a wide-ranging animal like coyotes, which Mark showed, like coyotes and wolves. I did want to respond to another question in the chat about wildfires in Canada pushing wolves southward. And I have not read much about that documentation. And there was also a question about whether wolves can cross the St. Lawrence Seaway, and yes, they can, especially if it freezes. And Chris, have you heard any like more sightings because of wildfires? I'm not sure how much wildlife in Canada are being tracked to see where they end up.
No, I agree.
An
I don't.
interesting question.
It is. I think the fires are actually killing more wolves than causing dispersal among them.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, and then yes, we need to advocate against trapping as well, absolutely. And there is unlimited trapping also for coyotes. So except in states, a few states, a handful of states that have some closed seasons to restrict the seasons where you can hunt and trap.
Yeah.
but it's still unlimited numbers. And then I think there was a question here about how many wolves have been inadvertently killed in wildlife killing derbies or contests. We don't actually know because nobody tracks the numbers there's of animals killed, whether it's squirrels or crows or rattlesnakes or wolves or coyotes in these wildlife killing contests. Nobody is tracking and reporting the numbers, and most of those animals end up brutally discarded, brutally treated and discarded. So unfortunately, we don't have any numbers on that. But you know, we've seen on social media sometimes, as gruesome as it is, animals that do appear to be wolves. And coyotes are often the target of these wildlife killing contests as well. And there's a great page on Project Cody's site and a national coalition fighting those killing contests as well. So encourage you to watch those videos and find out more. And Kristen, I think we have just a minute or two left. Am I missed any great questions?
I would like to address the one about Colorado ranchers, farmers, and hunters about the presence of wolves. I mean, it's difficult, right? So anything that is new, at least not new to Colorado as far as the thousands of years that they've lived here, but new to the folks that live here now. And so there's going to be resistance, and it's working through to that acceptance phase that that's coming on everyone's own terms. Some people maybe never will accept that wolves are part of the Colorado landscape now, but there are many that are going to move forward and that have already moved forward to, okay, how do I run my business with wolves on the landscape? How do I hunt with wolves on the landscape, and all of these things? And that's kind of a person by person situation, and that we can't really lump every hunter or every rancher into one category, saying they've all accepted it, and now they're working on coexistence. I mean, it's a wide variety of feelings and attitudes towards them, but with more and more education through both the nonprofits and through our state agencies, they're learning how to cope with wolves and change their practices to make it better for their business and for the wolves.
That's a great segue and reminder, Mark. Thank you. Segue to our closing. And I just want to emphasize again that what we're trying to get to, even if it's taking a long time for the wolves and the coyotes and all of us and all the critters, is to go from persecution to protection and from killing to coexistence. And as Mark said, there's a wide variety of attitudes and people on the landscape. And as Chris pointed out, the Northeast is a testing ground for changing our thinking and changing our protections. And so we can all work for that, to take action in your state, to educate your neighbors, and to promote coexistence, and to applaud regulators and agencies when they do promote coexistence. And so there's a lot of change underway and a lot more work to do. So thank you so much to everyone who joined today, and stay active all week. It's Wolf Awareness Week. So keep at it. And many thanks to my co-presenters and to everyone who attended.
Thank you all.
Have a great week.